The German shepherd sat quietly near the metal gate of the town shelter, and his body was still like a statue, but his eyes were always moving and watching the road as if he expected something familiar to return. Every morning the sun rose and warmed the ground, and every evening the sky turned orange and dark, and still the dog stayed in the same place with patience that surprised everyone. People came to the shelter every day, and families walked past his cage while holding children and talking softly, and many of them stopped to look at him for a moment before walking away. Some said he looked too serious, and some said he looked too old, and others said they wanted a dog that jumped and played and showed excitement. The German shepherd never barked and never pulled the fence and never begged for attention, and because of this many people thought he did not care. The shelter workers knew him well, and they called him Bruno because it was easy and simple and fit his strong body. Bruno had been brought back many times, and every return came with a different story, but the ending was always the same. One family said he did not bond with them, and another said he stayed awake at night and stared at the door, and another said he refused to sleep unless the lights were off. No one ever said he was mean or unsafe, and no one ever said he caused trouble, but still no one kept him. Bruno had a collar around his neck that looked older than him, and the leather was cracked, and the metal ring was scratched, and hanging from it was a small tag that most people never noticed. The tag was dull and dirty, and the letters were almost hidden, and only someone who came very close could read it. The shelter workers never removed the collar because Bruno became nervous without it, and would sit stiff and quiet until it was put back. One afternoon a man named Adam walked past the shelter while heading home from work, and his steps were slow because his mind was heavy. Adam lived alone in a small house at the edge of town, and the rooms felt larger since his days had grown quieter. He had no plan to visit the shelter and no thought of bringing an animal home, but when he passed the gate he noticed the German shepherd sitting without movement, and something made him stop. Bruno did not rush forward, and did not change his position, and only lifted his eyes to look at Adam with a calm, deep stare. Adam felt uneasy but not afraid, and he felt like the dog was not asking for anything, and that made the moment feel strange. Adam stepped closer and crouched near the fence, and the sounds of the street faded in his ears. He noticed the scars on Bruno's body that were healed and old, and he noticed how steady his breathing was, and how still his tail remained. Then Adam saw the collar and the small metal tag, and he leaned in closer to see what was written. He wiped the dirt away slowly with his fingers, and the words appeared little by little. The message on the tag was not a name, and not an address, and not a number. The message was a sentence, and it was worn but readable, and it said, "Please bring me home if found." Adam felt his chest tighten as he read it again and again, and he realized this tag was not meant for strangers and was not meant for a shelter. It was meant for someone who already loved this dog once. Adam stood up slowly and looked around, and noticed that no one else was paying attention, and that Bruno's eyes were still fixed on him. In that moment, Adam understood that Bruno was not waiting for just any family, and that he was not broken or distant, but loyal to something unfinished. Adam asked one of the shelter workers about Bruno's history, and the worker sighed and said very little was known. The dog had been found near an empty house years ago and brought in, and every time he was adopted he returned because he would sit by doors and windows and refuse to settle. The worker said maybe he remembered something, and maybe he was just strange. Adam nodded, but inside he felt something different and deeper. Adam went home that night, but the image of Bruno stayed in his mind and followed him through dinner and through the silence of his living room. He remembered the way the dog eyes held memory and patience, and how the tag carried a message instead of a name. Adam slept poorly and dreamed of long roads and waiting and quiet loyalty. The next morning, Adam returned to the shelter, and this time he did not hesitate. Bruno reacted the same way as before by lifting his eyes and staying calm, and Adam felt a strange comfort in that consistency. Adam asked to walk Bruno outside the fence, and when the gate opened Bruno stepped forward slowly and stood beside Adam without pulling. As they walked, Bruno stayed close and looked around carefully like he was mapping the place in his mind. Adam noticed that Bruno walked confidently but stopped whenever Adam stopped and waited. They reached the end of the path, and Bruno sat down and looked toward the road again. Adam followed his gaze and saw nothing special, but he understood that Bruno was watching for a moment from the past. Adam placed his hand gently on Bruno's neck and felt the warmth and strength there. Adam whispered softly that he did not know the whole story yet, but that he was willing to listen. Bruno did not react outwardly, but his breathing slowed and his body relaxed slightly. Adam realized then that this was not a dog that needed excitement or noise but one that needed understanding and patience. As Adam led Bruno back toward the shelter, he felt a decision forming in his heart. He did not know what would happen next and did not know where this path would lead, but he knew he would not ignore that message on the collar again. Bruno walked beside him calmly, and for the first time since arriving at the shelter his eyes did not search the road. Adam returned to the shelter the next morning with a calm but determined heart, and the workers noticed the change in his face as soon as he walked in. He did not rush and did not speak much, and instead he walked straight toward Bruno, who was sitting in the same spot as always. Bruno lifted his head when he heard Adam's steps, and his ears moved slightly like he recognized the sound. Adam sat down near him and spoke softly, and Bruno listened without moving. The shelter worker explained the process again and asked if Adam was sure because many families had said yes before and changed their minds later. Adam nodded and said he understood and signed the papers slowly with steady hands. When the gate opened, Bruno stood up and stepped forward without fear and without excitement, and it felt like he already knew this walk. Adam clipped the leash and felt the weight of responsibility settle gently on his chest. As they walked out of the shelter, Bruno paused once and looked back at the empty space behind him and then continued walking forward. Adam took Bruno home in his old car and the ride was quiet and peaceful. Bruno sat in the back seat looking out the window, and Adam noticed how calm he was even in a new place. When they reached the house, Bruno stepped inside carefully and sniffed the floor and walls like he was reading a story written long ago. Adam showed him a soft bed and a bowl of food and water, and Bruno accepted them without hesitation, but he did not rush to eat. Instead he walked through the rooms slowly and stopped near the front door and sat down. Adam noticed this and said it was okay and that he could rest anywhere, but Bruno stayed near the door with quiet focus. That night, Adam cooked dinner and ate alone while Bruno lay on the floor nearby watching him. There was no noise and no trouble and no confusion, and yet the house felt different and full. When Adam went to sleep, Bruno chose a spot near the bedroom door and stayed there like a guard. Adam woke up several times during the night, and each time he saw Bruno sitting calmly in the same place. In the morning, Adam went to work and felt unsure about leaving, but Bruno did not resist and simply watched him leave. Adam returned later and found Bruno in the same spot waiting. Days passed and a pattern formed, and Bruno followed routines carefully and patiently. He waited by the door every evening around the same time and looked down the road like he expected someone else to appear. Adam began to understand that this waiting was not about the house but about memory. One afternoon, Adam decided to follow Bruno's gaze and took him for a walk down the old road. Bruno walked with purpose and led Adam past houses and trees and quiet corners until they reached an empty place. There stood an old house with broken windows and tall grass around it. Bruno stopped and sat down and stared at the house with stillness that felt heavy. Adam felt a strange silence fill the air, and he realized this place mattered. Adam asked around the neighborhood and learned that a man once lived there alone and that he had passed away years ago. People said the man had only one companion, and that was a German shepherd who never left his side. The pieces began to connect in Adam's mind, and his heart felt tight. Adam returned home with Bruno and thought deeply about the tag on his collar. He realized that Bruno was not abandoned, but left behind by time. Adam started speaking to Bruno more and telling him stories and sitting beside him during his waiting hours. Slowly Bruno began to shift his attention from the road to Adam. One evening, instead of sitting by the door, Bruno walked over and lay near Adam's chair. Adam noticed and smiled softly and felt something warm settle between them. The waiting did not disappear, but it softened. Bruno still remembered, but he also began to accept. Adam understood that healing did not mean forgetting, and that loyalty could change shape without losing meaning. As weeks passed, Bruno started to sleep deeper, and his eyes looked lighter. He followed Adam through the house and rested without watching the door all night. Adam felt honored to be trusted with something so deep. He knew that Bruno's story was not about rejection but about devotion. And Adam realized that sometimes the right family is not the first or the loudest but the one willing to wait alongside a quiet heart. Adam noticed small changes in Bruno that felt important and gentle, and each day brought a new sign of trust. Bruno began to greet Adam at the door, not with noise but with presence and calm eyes that waited for a touch. Adam started taking Bruno on longer walks, and the path slowly changed from the old road to new streets and parks. Bruno walked beside Adam with steady steps and looked around with curiosity instead of longing. Children passed by, and some smiled and some waved, and Bruno watched them without fear. Adam felt proud and protective, and also patient, because he knew progress came quietly. One afternoon, rain began to fall softly, and Adam and Bruno returned home soaked and laughing in silence. Adam dried Bruno with a towel, and Bruno stood still and allowed the care like he understood it mattered. That evening Adam sat on the floor and brushed Bruno for slowly, and the dog rested his head near Adam's knee. Adam spoke in a low voice about his own life, and the empty rooms and the long days and the nights that felt longer. Bruno listened with calm breathing and steady warmth, and the space between them felt safe. As weeks turned into months, Bruno learned the rhythms of the house and the sounds of the neighborhood. He no longer sat by the door at the same hour, and instead followed Adam into the kitchen and the living room. Sometimes Bruno paused and looked toward the road, but then he returned to Adam's side. Adam realized that memory still lived in Bruno's heart, but it no longer controlled his body. One day, Adam found an old box in the attic, and inside were tools and photos from the house's previous owner. Adam felt a pull and decided to visit the old place again with Bruno. They walked the same path and reached the quiet house, and the air felt heavy but calm. Adam opened the gate slowly, and Bruno stepped inside and walked around the yard with care. Bruno sniffed the ground and stopped near a tree and sat quietly. Adam felt a moment of respect and stayed silent. After some time, Bruno stood up and walked back toward Adam without hesitation. Adam felt tears in his eyes because he understood this was a goodbye that had been waiting. They left the place together, and Bruno did not look back. From that day, Bruno's sleep was deeper and his body relaxed more. He played gently with a ball and rested in the sun and accepted treats with soft eyes. Adam invited a neighbor named Sam to visit, and Bruno greeted him calmly and stayed close to Adam. Sam noticed the bond and said it felt strong and honest. Adam smiled and said it was built on listening. One evening Adam sat outside watching the sky, and Bruno lay beside him and rested his head on Adam's foot. Adam felt the weight of the day fade, and the quiet felt warm instead of empty. Bruno breathed slowly, and the sound matched Adam's heartbeat. Adam understood that family did not always arrive with excitement and celebration, but sometimes arrived with patience and shared silence. As time passed, Adam and Bruno became known in the neighborhood as a pair that walked together every morning. People noticed Bruno's calm nature and trusted presence. Some asked about his past, and Adam said it was a story of loyalty and time. Bruno did not need to hear the words because he felt the meaning. Adam knew that healing was not a straight road, and that some days memories returned softly. When that happened, Adam sat beside Bruno and waited without pushing. Bruno learned that waiting no longer meant being alone. Their bond grew not through big moments but through small daily choices. Adam felt grateful that he had stopped at the shelter that evening and read the tag with care. Bruno felt safe knowing that his loyalty had found a place to rest. Together they moved forward, carrying the past with respect and choosing the present with trust. Life settled into a gentle rhythm for Adam and Bruno, and the days no longer felt heavy or rushed. Adam woke each morning to the sound of Bruno moving quietly nearby, and the presence felt comforting and steady. Bruno waited patiently while Adam prepared for the day, and then followed him outside for their walk. The morning air felt fresh and familiar, and the road no longer carried the weight of waiting. Bruno walked with confidence and sometimes looked up at Adam as if checking that everything was right. Adam talked during these walks about simple things like work and weather and plans, and Bruno listened with calm attention. At home, Bruno chose his favorite spot near the window where sunlight reached the floor and rested there peacefully. Adam noticed that Bruno's eyes now carried warmth instead of distance, and that change felt meaningful. Neighbors grew used to seeing them together and often greeted them with smiles. Children sometimes asked if they could say hello, and Bruno stood calmly and allowed gentle hands. Adam felt proud and protective and grateful all at once. One afternoon, Adam found the old collar and tag and cleaned it carefully and kept it safe as a reminder of the journey. He did not remove it from memory because it represented loyalty and love that had lasted beyond loss. Adam realized that the message on the tag had finally been answered not by returning to the past, but by building a future. Bruno no longer searched the road and instead waited for Adam's return each day. The house felt full not because of noise but because of understanding. On quiet evenings Adam sat with Bruno and watched the sky change colors, and both felt at peace. Adam understood that Bruno had been rejected not because he was unlovable, but because he carried a story that required patience. Adam was willing to listen and wait, and that made all the difference. Time continued to pass and seasons changed, and Bruno grew older but calmer and happier. Adam adjusted his life to include Bruno's needs and routines without effort. They shared moments of silence and comfort that felt deeper than words. Adam sometimes thought about the shelter and the day he stopped and felt thankful. He knew that not all connections happen quickly, and that some hearts need time to open. Bruno trusted Adam completely and stayed close even when new people came around. Adam never felt alone again because companionship filled the quiet spaces. The bond between them became something others noticed and admired. Adam learned that love does not always come with excitement, but often arrives with responsibility and care. Bruno learned that loyalty could find a new home without losing its meaning. Together they showed that understanding and patience can heal even the deepest waiting. The story of rejection turned into a story of belonging, not because of chance but because one man chose to read a tag and listen to what it meant. Bruno finally rested not just his body but his heart. Adam finally understood that family is built through choice and compassion. And in that shared life both found the home they were waiting for.